Bill Gates, welcome to All Things Considered.
Great to be here.
You've written several books over the years, but they've often been books about issues or ideas, never really your own life. Why did it take you so long to write about yourself, to write a memoir?
Well, I love looking forward, driving innovation. That's been my whole career. So as only as I was turning 70 this year, Microsoft turning 50, that I decided, okay, maybe it is time to look back a little bit and talk about the amazing luck I've had, the parents I had when I was born, and hopefully, distill some lessons about why things worked as well as they did.
I will admit, I've read your book reviews on your blog for years. You clearly are a thoughtful reader. Did you put pressure on yourself when it came time to write about your own life?
Yeah, we've been thinking about this autobiography for about 6 years. And as we drafted it as a single thing, I didn't feel like I was getting to the depth I wanted on any topic without making the book too long. And so it was 18 months ago that I suggested, hey, let's try just doing the first part. Thinking, okay, I'd get that out of the way, and for the people who read it, they'd get to know my parents and a couple of my key friends. But the interest level in this first 25 years has been greater than I expected.
The thing that I was thinking about reading this is I'm wondering what you think about the idea, like how much of this path to success is replicable in 2025? Because on one hand, you have this industry being created around you in the moment. You're in the right place at the right time. The industry is exponentially expanding. But on the other hand, there's like this level of freedom that a teenager can have to go sneak out your window and code at 2 a.m. and then to ride the bus to another city and code sensitive infrastructure. Like it feels like a Ferris Bueller movie type thing where just like clearly no teen would be able to do that today. Like, is any of this replicable these days?
There's no doubt that kids are more subject to restrictions. Even the hiking that I did, where my parents didn't know where we were, the fact they were so easily comfortable with that. It's not how I raised children. We, were a lot tighter. And there is some pushback on that because you don't mature in quite the same way. You don't get to make the same mistakes or try things out.
Mm-hmm.
I still think there will be unbelievable entrepreneurs. Companies like NVIDIA, are now joining the Big Seven, and that's a pretty recent phenomena. So there's enough room for innovation. But I was lucky that Paul Allen and I saw personal computing and the role of software, and almost nobody else did. Even the big companies, particularly IBM, didn't see what we saw. So you always, when you have lots of companies, you have to find a flaw in their thinking.
Yeah.
And so it'd be tougher today.
That's interesting that you said that you didn't take that approach as a parent, because I feel like there's an argument in this book. It's an argument for giving your independent kids a longer leash than you would have otherwise, because that's what your parents did after a lot of struggle and after a lot of back and forth over how to deal with you as a kid. They decided to give you that long leash and let you have independence.
Yeah, and so that included going off and coding late at night, taking part of my senior year of high school off to go work on a project where some of the best software people were there and, enjoyed telling me what I was doing well, what I was doing poorly.
Did you ever, as an adult, ask them, like, did you know I was sneaking out at 2 a.m?
Definitely my dad had a sense of what was going on. He was definitely the more open-minded of the two, and so he got a kick out of that.
What do you think about the person you were as a preteen, as a teenager? Because there's a lot of time in this book where you write about it, and at times you kind of write with regret or embarrassment or reflectiveness. But it's also clear that a lot of those traits helped you become who you were down the line as an adult.
Yeah, I blush thinking of how I could be abrasive or not understanding the effect I was having on people. As I gained an understanding of things, I pushed my knowledge. Early Microsoft, we weren't that good at drawing out the talents of people who had different behavior styles. The developers we hired were a lot like I was, and so we missed out. Over time, we brought in some great adults who broadened our view, but things like where I told my professor when he was wrong and turned out I was completely wrong. I wanted to get that off my chest because I've always felt bad about it. And he was very gracious when I spoke to him recently.
You're talking about you and Paul Allen and others seeing what was happening and seeing the next decade in a way that the IBMs of the world weren't quite seeing or didn't want to deal with because they had their own business model. Do you remember the moment when you and the other kids at the computer lab realized, like, okay, in the next 20 years, everyone's going to have a computer? Like, do you remember when that clicked into place, like this is going to happen?
Yeah, when I helped Paul get a job in Boston and he moved out my sophomore year, we were already writing that there'd be a computer on every desk and in every home. And that became sort of the founding slogan of Microsoft. Actually, we added the words running Microsoft software, which was kind of the self-centered piece. And I was going to professors and saying, look, computing is going to become free because of this exponential improvement that Moore's Law predicted. And, let's get involved in thinking that through. And people just didn't see it. That kind of surprised us, but it's what gave us the edge. Paul wanted to do personal computers. I said, no, let's just do the software piece. And then when the first kit computer comes out, that's when I know to be on the ground floor of the revolution we'd been waiting for, that I had to drop out.
Why do you think it was a bunch of kids who saw that so clearly, and professors and big companies and all of the existing infrastructure didn't quite see it the same way that you did?
Well, once you get your mindset that computers are these rare, expensive things, and you've been spending your time thinking about how you make them a little more efficient and a little less expensive, when somebody who's young and hasn't been around can say, wait a minute, exponential improvement. That's the chip industry off in California, Intel. And the computer industry, both IBM and the mini computer companies that are mostly up in the Boston area, they're not really tracking that. I mean, Paul and I, the minute the 8080 chip was announced in 1973, Paul says to me, is this one good enough? Because the 8008 2 years earlier, I told him, no, I can't do a basic interpreter for that. But in 73, the 88, and I said, Paul, this thing is better than the most popular mini computer, which was a $20,000 machine, PDP-8 from Digital. And so we were like, wow, how come everybody's not, their mind isn't blown? When we show up and, actually call the company with that kit computer, they were amazed that we were on our way actually writing a basic for them.
I want to back up a little bit in the story that you tell in this book and ask you to tell us about your best friend from high school, Kent Evans.
So when the computer shows up, there's really four of us who a few months later are still there obsessed. And my best friend by far, Kent Evans, who I talk to every night, he was a great student, more diligent than I was. He influenced me. He was more outward looking. He'd looked up the salaries of generals and ambassadors and professors and got me reading Fortune magazine. Really amazing person.
He was like showing up to school in a briefcase.
Yeah, he had all these magazines, very serious. He followed the politics of the time when I wasn't doing that at all. And so he and I had always thought, okay, we're going to go off and pursue some computer-related dream. And so it's when I'm a junior in high school, I'm 16, he's 17, that this mountain climbing course, that it was surprising he chose to sign up for, because he was even less naturally coordinated than I was. But once he picked something, he did it fairly seriously. And tragically, I talked to him Friday night. He goes off, falls down the mountain over the weekend. And the headmaster calls me that Sunday and says that Kent isn't just hurt, he's died. And that was such a shock to me. My childhood was really idyllic in a lot of ways. It's the only traumatic thing. And, pretty hard to process, because, I would have, partnered with him in some way. I reach out at that time because I've committed to do this scheduling software work to Paul, and he comes back and helps me out. And that sort of gets us spending lots of time together.
Yeah.
That leads to us founding Microsoft.
Given that, how much time have you spent thinking about how different your life is if he doesn't die? Because you write in the book, and you said here that you would have kept working him in one way or another for sure, but at the same time, that's the event that causes you to really dig in with Paul working on these programs that become the business.
When I saw Kent's father not long ago, we talked about that, we probably, because we were so close, would have gone to the same school, because he was more action. Kent and I were the most action-oriented of that foursome. He would have, been great at helping get the business going, which that part was mainly a big focus that I had, since Paul's conceptual thinking was super necessary, but he counted on me for the more mundane parts of doing things. So it would have been different with Kent, but we would have had a partnership and done our best.
A couple questions about that period of time when Microsoft, first it's Micro-Soft, gets up and running in Albuquerque, and you're deciding whether or not to drop out of school, and some of these key decisions are being made. So much is happening. You're talking about running into Steve Jobs for the first time. This world is being created. I'm wondering, when it comes to the business decisions, when it comes to the strategic decisions, what you think, in retrospect, the lucky break or the best decision you made at that time was, and what you think the biggest mistake you made at that time was. Again, just those first few years of getting up and running and, coding all night type life that you had going on in New Mexico.
Well, the key thing is that we decided we would be a software factory. We would hire the best software people. We'd write the best software tools. So we weren't going to be about just a word processor or spreadsheet or a basic interpreter. We were going to be worldwide. And our competitors early on are all single product companies. WordPerfect had a great word processor. Lotus had a great spreadsheet. But we moved faster than they did because we had this software factory mentality. And, so our clock